Bill O'Brien, former Alabama offensive coordinator, former Penn State head coach, former Houston Texans head coach, is headed back to New England to link up with Bill Belichick, to link up with Mac Jones, and to be the new offensive coordinator to the Patriots. Now, there is obviously now a huge hole in one of the most important staffs in all of college football, but it's one that we've been looking at for a while, right? I mean, we've been talking about Bill O'Brien needing to make a change. Where is Nick Saban going to find a new home for him? Maybe he put in the call to his old buddy, Bill Belichick, and was like, hey, what do you think about this? This is a win-win situation. So I want to start with that. Clearly, it's not a surprise the way we've been talking about Bill O'Brien and his future with the Crimson Tide. What do you think happens next for Alabama?
Oh, they got good options. You know that. I mean, Nick Saban, it's going to be an attractive landing spot for a lot of names that are out there. It's a massive year for Bama. I mean, I've been pretty vocal. I don't think it's the end of the dynasty. I think it's the end of the dominance, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw that start to creep in this year. And I think you're going to see that continue to erode, the dominance. But this is massive. And I think when you look at dynasties coming to a close, it's like, do you miss on quarterbacks, or plural, because I do think it takes a couple, and do you miss on coordinators? And we have both coordinators leaving Alabama, but like you pointed out, this is good news for a lot of Bama fans. They're tired of seeing the same offense and seeing Pete Golding's defense get torched by Tennessee and others, and Georgia. Pick your offense that's torn them apart. I'll say who I would call number one, but I think there's zero chance it happens.
What's that?
Dan Mullen. I think he would be my first call if I'm Nick Saban. What's your interest? I think Dan Mullen would say, thanks, Nick. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I am having a great time doing what I'm doing. It's very low stress. And I remember I had a conversation with Dan Mullen on the radio show. We were doing breaks. He comes on right after us. So we were just kicking it around. And he was telling a story about how, his last year, he started to look at other coaches after wins. And he's like, you couldn't tell. He's like, so I really want to make a point of enjoying wins and enjoying success. I'm like, if that's what he's looking for his next job, I would not recommend going to Tuscaloosa, because no one enjoys their wins less than Nick Saban, right? He is all business all the time. So I don't think it's a good fit. I think it'd be a phenomenal hire. If somehow Saban's able to pull that off, watch out. I might pull back the whole dynasty is coming to a close statement. I think he makes a lot of sense.
I think we've already heard, by the way, some reporting that Dan Mullen is happy.
Good.
Yeah. He's happy spending more time with his family. He's happy getting into the broadcasting. And I think that he's enjoyed it enough that, and this is something that maybe you can even speak to. We don't need to make this a Dan Mullen cast, but when you start to get into the industry, one thing that I've heard from a lot of former players and a lot of former coaches is that you can like it and you can want to get better. And, you get a little taste of it and you're like, okay, so this is, in the same way that you approach, game planning or studying a playbook or trying to figure out what to do, you start to figure out the way things work. And that was the report that I saw, was that Dan Mullen was really enjoying broadcasting and wants to continue to do it, because we all recognize him as being very, very good on TV. And he can get even better. And I think that he's probably way more invested than that, than going into the high pressurized situation of being Nick Saban's offensive coordinator.
And guess what else is going to happen? As he gets better and better at broadcasting, he gets a bigger and bigger platform, and his star continues to rise. His coaching star, he becomes that much more attractive as a coaching hire. Look at Sean Payton, in the NFL. He is the hottest commodity right now. And a large part it's because a lot that's transpired, but I could envision a scenario if there's another SEC job that comes open, wherever it is, that Dan Mullen would be target number one to go after, especially if he's another year in, at ESPN and he's calling games and he's doing studio, he's doing all of it. Absolutely. He'll be one of the hottest coaching figures. So I think for a lot of coaches that have gone to the Saban Rehab Center, to get their careers revived, they've kind of had to, right? I mean, whether it was personal issues, whether it was they kind of had fallen on hard times and maybe they weren't as, hot names.
Well, it's like Lane Kiffin got left at the tarmac. Steve Sarkisian had personal issues, and they've obviously both rebounded into some of the better jobs at the Power 5 level that you can have right now. I mean, there is an opportunity for a rebound for sure.
Yeah. So that's where I don't think Dan Mullen needs it. I don't think he needs a rebound. He's already rebounding right now as we speak, as he becomes more and more attractive on TV. I see Larry in the chat said,
yeah, we're
Cliff
going
Kingsbury.
to. I was going to ask if Saban can has any translators that can go to Thailand and be able to go get Cliff Kingsbury out of there.
I'm sure he's got a jet that's fueled up, ready to go if he wanted to go that direction. I don't know if the system makes sense for what Saban wants to do. I also think you have to find a coach who's and I think this is why Garrett Riley didn't go to Texas A&M. I think he goes to Clemson and it's, here's your offense, do whatever you want to do. I am not going to mess with you. And I don't think that happens at Alabama. I think it's, you're going to be the offensive coordinator, but you're going to have to answer to Coach Saban in many situations when you're formulating the game plan on game day, during game day. If you're throwing it too much, if you're not doing what he's wanting, you're going to have to answer to him. And that's where I think Cliff Kingsbury at a point, and not only that, but I think the system fit is not good. You know what I mean? I don't know if that air raid system is one that Saban really would be doing jumping jacks for.
Have you started to think about the quarterback outlook and how that may or may not play a role here? Because there is a baby Dan Mullen out there, and I don't mean baby in terms of being a younger one, but Brian Johnson is currently the quarterbacks coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was a quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant under Dan Mullen at Mississippi State when Dak Prescott was there. When those offenses, of which Mullen's definitely the architect, Brian Johnson, that experience plus good gravy, what he's been able to do with Jalen Hurts and what that Philadelphia Eagles offense has been looking like, especially here in 2022. You might have to wait a little while to go and make that hire, but if you make that hire, then it also has me looking at Jalen Milroe and it has me looking at Ty Simpson. And that's another place where this fork is a little bit interesting when we look at the Crimson Tide in 2023, because Milroe clearly the way that he was used was as almost like Jalen Hurts' freshman season when it was very much a passing threat, but this is a running game, and being able to utilize the way that he can make a difference with his size, 6'3", 225. I know they ran the ball almost as much as they threw it in that Texas A&M game. In total, a lot more than they threw it, but running it with Milroe a good bit too. Like Brian Johnson, the work that he's done with Jalen Hurts, that one is sort of bubbled up as one that if we don't hear a lot of movement on this early, I would not be surprised if he's going to be someone that they at least want to talk to before going and making a move.
For sure. He's a very hot name. He's even getting talked about to make the jump just from Philly as the quarterback coach to a head coach. Like, that name has been out there. I don't think Jalen Milroe is the quarterback next year. I think it's Ty Simpson or somebody else. Just watching Jalen Milroe's skill set. I mean, I did see film of him at the bowl game running some routes at receiver. I think Saban's going to utilize him somehow, but I don't think he's their quarterback. I could be wrong. I don't think he's the quarterback next season. If you did go that route, Brian Johnson is an option. Greg Roman, who just resigned at the NFL level from the Ravens, they had a parting of ways. He had a lot of success going all the way back to Stanford with Harbaugh, so he's had some collegiate experience, then had a lot of success with running quarterbacks with Colin Kaepernick of the 49ers, and then obviously with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. So I think that's a name to look out for. I'll give you one who makes a lot of sense too, Jeff Lebby.
Yeah.
Now he was the hottest name that was out there coming off Ole Miss. Do you feel like it's cooled off somewhat? I mean, they still, at the end of the year, Dylan Gabriel got it going back. But considering he was in the SEC West, considering what Ole Miss did while he was there, and even their offense took a setback when he left, I think Jeff Lebby makes a ton of sense if he wanted to get that gig.
Ty Simpson was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, ranked as the number 3 quarterback in his class. He is someone who could sit back there within that Lebby offense and sling it around in a way that could be incredibly prolific, and where we could see the Jeff Lebby system really be able to click. Like, Jeff Lebby hired does lead me to believe that Ty Simpson's going to have a leg up in that battle and is probably going to be the quarterback for 2023. We still have to answer the wide receiver, situation, as we've seen a lot of players leave Alabama, and that position hasn't had great development recently. But I think I'd make that move if I was Jeff Lebby. Like if I was Jeff Lebby and I'm looking at Oklahoma making the move to the SEC, wouldn't you rather be linking up at Alabama than be with Oklahoma as Oklahoma makes the splash into the SEC? I mean, have you talked to Dusty? Is Dusty talking about Jeff Lebby and the potential candidacy here? All right,
for sure. Now Dusty wants Lebby to stay.
Obviously.
That's his, like he wants him to stay. But I think if you looked, I mean, you're coming off a 6-7 year with Brent Venables, and there were times I think Oklahoma fans were even pointing the finger at Jeff Lebby. I'm sure that didn't feel great, and Dylan Gabriel came in. Now the finish was great. They kind of finished strong down the stretch, but yeah, job security. Like if you want to be that next head man, like the future is unclear at Oklahoma with how they bounce back, right? Year 2 of Venables, there's a ton of pressure on you there, and you wouldn't be surprised. Like it's unclear. At Bama, like worst case is probably you're 9-3 or 10-2, and you might still be catching heat just like Bill O'Brien did. But look what happened to Bill O'Brien. Like he still got a job as an offensive coordinator in the NFL with one of the best franchises there. So yeah, for job security, trying to parlay it, like if Lebby, which I do think he wants to be a head coach, like he goes there in 1 year, if Bama's back on track and they're back in the SEC title game and the offense is clicking with Ty Simpson, who I do think will be the starter, then yeah, Lebby's going to have a tremendous opportunity. And if he wants that opportunity, Oklahoma, don't you think they have to go 10-2 like this year and show like a ton of improvement for him to get the job that he wants? Not just any job, but the job that he wants, which would be a really good Power 5 job.
The one good thing that they have at Oklahoma is Jackson Arnold, the huge 5-star top 10 overall player in that 2023 class, coming to Oklahoma, and no doubt coming with the idea that he is going to be running Jeff Lebby's system. So like that would really sting if Lebby ends up leaving. It would sting for Jackson Arnold. It would, the reason to stay if I'm Jeff Lebby, or not to just automatically be sliding my resume under the door, is to know that you've got a chance to be able to take that launching off point because of the success that you expect that you're going to have with the player of Jackson Arnold's ceiling being right there in Norman. Do you think there's any weird candidates out there? Anything that could catch you off guard?
The mystery name?
If he promotes internally, I'm going to think that Nick Saban's on his way out.
Or like, what does that say about his inability to bring the big name in?
Yeah.
Like that would, to me, would be I struck out on a lot of these names.
Right.
And that would not be a good sign. And that'd like that would not be great.
No, we expect Nick Saban, based on his tenure on at the offensive coordinator position, at least. Like if he promotes on the defensive side, that's just what he did, right? He had Kirby forever. Kirby leaves. He promotes Pete Golding. Like if they decide to promote internally on the defensive side, then I'm not going to be alarmed. Offensively, you've gone out and you've gotten Lane Kiffin. You've gone out and you've gotten Steve Sarkisian. You have gone out and gotten Bill O'Brien. Like there is a trend of being able to go and get a name of someone who has either head coaching experience and or a good offensive reputation. If this is not a splashy hire, then I think that my warning signs and my alarm bells for Alabama might be ringing a little bit louder for sure.
Do you know what name I saw a couple people put this name out there? Oh, I got one for you. I got a legit one and one that I was surprised. Jeff Scott. Like I was a little bit surprised that name was out there. I don't know if that would actually I don't think that would blow away Bama fans at all. But Joe Brady. What about Joe Brady, who's out there, was the Bills quarterback coach this year? Of course, he had the 2019 run with Joe Brady. And like that trio might be the greatest trio in the history of college football. So that might have had something to do with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow. But I think Joe Brady would be an attractive hire who hasn't, fared the way he wanted to in the NFL, but you bring him back in the SEC West and he's going to have, you don't know if he's going to have that type of talent, but he's going to have some talent to work with.
Does Joe Brady look at Ken Dorsey and think that Ken Dorsey might be getting fired and Joe Brady could get a promotion pretty soon?
Possibly.
Because the way that things went for Buffalo, I mean, you cover the NFL for CBS Sports, you know this a little bit better, but didn't that Buffalo offense regress a little bit after Dayball left?
In the postseason, Josh Allen actually had the exact same 63% completion percentage, like 35 and 10 touchdowns. Last year it was 30 or like 35 and 11. Like it's eerie how identical the numbers are, but there was a postseason collapse like that was colossal. Last year he was 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. This year he was 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a big reason why they got bounced at home. But yes, to your point, Brady might be looking around and just saying, okay, maybe if I just hold pat here, I could get to work with Josh Allen if Dorsey doesn't work out.
It's like, especially if Burrow and Chase and Jefferson keep balling, it's like, oh, hey, boss, I'm just sitting here watching the 2019 title game, just watching an offense that I played a key role in helping orchestrate and put together. I think Joe Brady would be a very good hire. That would be in line with one of the ones that has me being like, okay, all right, buckle up. Let's see what happens. Jeff Scott would not.
No.
Jeff Scott, listen, that was all set up for him to be able to, just go off and pave his own path. And I thought it was going to work out. I really, really did. Danny, I turned in a writing assignment for CBS Sports. It'll be up on the site later, grading coaches who just finished their 3rd year, like grading their 3-year tenure. He had 1 win against an FBS opponent in 30 games. And that was against Temple in the last year of Rod Carey being the head coach at Temple. There was just like, they flirted with Florida. It was that one game, where they got a little bit dicey with the Gators and they got a little close at Cincinnati. But man, that was just not a competitive team. I don't know what he's going to do for the year, but I do not think that would do much more for me other than say, okay, Jeff, I think you and I texted about this, but he did a good job of developing the wide receiver position at Clemson in a way that I do think he was missed. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if Jeff Scott would be the home run hire that I'd be looking for, especially with some of these other names that are out there right now.
Last thing before we move, what do you think timing on this? Like with it by Friday or like within a week?
I would not be surprised if we don't get an answer until even after National Signing Day. And I wanted to mention this too. Alabama has no coordinators. They are currently number 1 in the nation with a 28 commit signing class that includes 7 5-stars, 24 stars, and an average per player rating of 94.84.
That's insane. That's the power of Nick Saban.
Like you don't have coordinators, and it's like, nope, we're good.
Yeah.
No concerns, no flips. Everybody's good. Yeah. The average per player rating, 94.84, 7 5-stars, 24 stars, and just 1 3-star who I can only assume, I don't have the whole class pulled up. I've got to assume that's a long snapper or at least like a punter or a kicker or something. This is like, to your point, the crux of your initial, if I remember correctly, the crux of your initial Alabama analysis was the 1-score games, right?
Yeah.
Just go back and say, okay, like,
right. It's like games where they used to bounce back after a loss and they'd be like a 19.5 point favorite and they'd win by 40. They would just dust the opponent. Like this year was almost like they played down to some of the competition. And it's just the dominance that was there where there was really 1 or 2 close games against really good opponents. Now all of a sudden, they're in a dogfight with Texas A&M when they were a 3-touchdown favorite, maybe 4.
Yeah. Will be very interesting. I agree with you. This is a crucial time for the Nick Saban era in the Alabama Crimson Tide, changing over both coordinators after back-to-back seasons where the margins between you and the competition have been narrowed significantly from where they were.